Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the East Long Meadow Town Council meeting of January 10th. I would ask that everyone please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I would ask us to take a moment of silence to reflect on all that's happened, New Year, all the tragedy in the world and the good things in the world. Thank you. I need to announce that this meeting is being taped by LCAT via Mass General Law, Chapter 43F.5, I think it is. And I would have to ask if anyone in the audience is either audio or video recording. Okay, seeing none, we can move right on. Jeannie, do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
No one signed up.
Don, is there anyone on the screen looking for public comments?
There is not.
At this time, usually we ask for signups. Is there anyone in the audience that has a public comment? Okay, council comments. Anything going on with the council?
Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, town manager report. This is going good tonight. Mary. Manager report.
I do, yeah, thank you. Short report tonight, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, our last meeting was only 3 weeks ago, and the intervening weeks were holiday weeks, and a lot of town staff were using their accrued time off and using it up at the end of the year. So we tried to just keep things moving along as efficiently as possible. But in the report, I wanted to point out Bruce Moore's efforts in particular at restoring the Vietnam Memorial that's outside on the rock in the courtyard near the rear entrance of the town hall. And it's quite nice. It's been inserted and it looks very, very lovely. And I would hope that if you're in the neighborhood or taking a walk or something, you could stop and pass by. Bruce did a great job with that. And that's the same family that Major Doughton that was honored at the Veterans Memorial, the East Long Meadow native that was shot down in Vietnam, and his body was recently recovered. On veterans issues, the Eastern District did hire Jerry Rathy as the new Veteran Service Officer for the district. He started here last Tuesday. His hours are not yet certain. The Veterans Board was supposed to meet today, but one of our members, one of the three, is on vacation, and it was our reorganization meeting, so it's been postponed probably till next week. Hamden's going to have a new representative. Wales, the chair of their Board of Selectmen, will remain as a board member, and I'm in there for as long as I'm here. So Jerry's time here in East Long Meadow is going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, we think, 15 or 16 hours a week. And then he'll spend the other 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, in Wales and Hamden respectively, depending on need. Tom Christensen, our deputy manager, and I, with the participation of Steve Lonergan, have interviewed several people who are interested in our Director of Municipal Finance position. And we decided to hire a young woman by the name of Kim Collins, who's currently employed in Ludlow as the town accountant. She's been there for 6 or 7 years and has at least according to her resume and to her oral interview, a lot of significant financial experience with bonding that would be helpful, we hope, in the school process if that vote is successful. And then we think she can hit the ground running. They use the same software system as we use here. And she has, as I said, 6 or 7 years dealing with her Board of Selectmen as the Chief Financial Officer. So we're looking forward to her start date, which is February 1st. In addition to Kim, the fire department, as you recall, was awarded their first deputy fire chief position to begin in January, this January. And so there was a course of interviews with several qualified candidates for that position as well. And over the course of a couple of weeks in different phases, these interviews are a little more complex than the normal oral interview that you'd have with a regular position candidate. In any event, we chose Captain Chris Beecher to be the first deputy fire chief in the town. So I'm currently working on drafting his contract, and Chris and I are going to meet next Tuesday to discuss the particulars of that. Our planning director Bailey is going to Zoom in tonight. With my acquiescence, I hope you don't mind that he's on the screen, but he had a zoning board of appeals meeting that he attended in person last night. And so due to his living situation and so forth, it just seemed reasonable that he wouldn't have to be here 12 or 13 hours on consecutive days. So he'll be present on the screen to address the fuel efficient policy and may have some commentary about the town's energy reduction plan and the direction we want to go with that. And he'll be not accompanied by, but assisted by Catherine Rattay, who is the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission staff member, who's worked extensively with the town on a number of projects. And she'll be available to answer any questions that the council may have. We continue to negotiate with the fire department union. The next meeting is scheduled for January 24th. And we've been asked by the town clerical and professional units to begin negotiations for their contracts, which expire in June of 23. So that issue of labor relations and union contract discussions goes on. We are also in receipt of 4 $1,000 grants this month, 2 from Ellen Leahy at the what's the name of her funeral?
Wilbraham.
Funeral parlor?
Right.
Yes.
One on behalf of the funeral parlor itself and the other one from the Springfield Cemetery. And then Bay Path University also has an annual gift that they make to 1,000 to the police department, 1,000 to the fire department for a purchase of equipment of their choice and need. So those 4 donations are before you tonight. Not to mention that East Long Meadow's population might be aging, but our director of COA told me last week that they enrolled 619 new members at the Council on Aging in calendar.
Wow.
22. I assume they all live in East Long Meadow. That was great. And I think it's a tribute to the activities that she has instituted here. This place is a very busy location, 5 days a week, all day long. And we owe Erin a real kudo for the success that she's achieved here in a short period of time. And she's also serving as the chair of our new commission, our reconstituted Commission on Disability. So she's been working with Tom Christensen on getting applicants for those positions, and we'll be posting an ad as usual in the reminder in the event that we can't fill those vacancies. So last, but well, almost last, school building committee continues to meet. A very extensive meeting was held last Thursday, and we're coming to crunch time. The committee has to make a recommendation to MSBA on February 14th regarding the option that we're selecting, or we're preferring. It's a preferred schematic report and design, I think is what it's called. So of the 3 options that the architects have been discussing with the committee over many months, a vote will have to be taken at one of the meetings later in January for submission to the MSBA in February. And then they vote whether or not to approve our submission or edit it. I think it's by an April 26th date, or something like that. After this report was submitted to you, so it was last Friday, there was a very long Westcom Board of Directors meeting. Just want to keep the council informed. You know, the manager here and the manager in other communities, or the administrators, sit on the Board of Directors for Westcom. So all the participating communities have a representative on the board. And now they're talking, the board and the executive director there is talking about adding the sheriff's department to the dispatch, talking about opportunities and the growth. We're just concerned that the growth happens at a pace that we can sustain and support. This happens to be the fourth year coming up, fiscal 24. First 3 years, you might recall, were 100% funded by the state 911. This year, the funding is 50% of our assessment, which, and I don't know what that assessment is yet. And then next year it would be down to 25%. So we have achieved a great amount of savings but there are some operational issues that come up, some more frequently than others, and some with some repeated frequency that, and they deal with the radio, so hence the frequency, but some of those are problems, and we're going to meet again this Friday and next Friday. We're going to have an executive session regarding some of the other issues that must be discussed in that forum. So I just want to keep you aware that, the acquisition or the solicitation of new participants to fill the new building, the old Salter College building, it's operational now. And they have 30 dispatch positions. They have a deputy director. There's an HR function. So it's becoming a very all-encompassing district operation. And yeah, as I said, there's an executive director and a deputy, but the function of the board, myself included, sometimes comes to these meetings without a lot of preparation because we don't get the information necessarily in enough advance time to review and digest anything. So those are some of the issues procedurally and substantively that we need to work out. Also on Friday, I was able to attend a Brownfields webinar sponsored by the federal EPA in anticipation of acquiring some further education regarding the potential remediation of 70 Maple Street eventually. So that was helpful. And additionally, last week, Tom and I met with the director of the West Mass Development, an old friend of mine by the name of Jeff Daly. Jeff has a lot of business development ideas. His nonprofit group has done a lot of development in Western Massachusetts. And so we just had sort of a reacquaintance conversation, but incident to that, he connected us with another representative from our DA past, Brian Sullivan, who's now working for the Westfield Gas and Electric and their fiber project. So we hope to meet with Brian next week. Brian Quimby, Don Mackey, and myself and Tom, just to see what information we can glean from Westfield's experience and hopefully make our broadband process a little bit smoother as a result. The last thing, I did speak with the superintendent of schools yesterday, and he just had one question about whether the council would entertain setting the date for our joint meeting.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've thought about that. They were happy about the,
We're already in January.
yeah. So I told them I'd mention it to you, and certainly we can decide that later, but.
Taking notes.
Okay, that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Mary, did you say that we are into the Salter building so that they've already moved in, or?
It's a work in progress, but yes, there are.
So there's still other construction and all and expansion and everything, but
But the bond that you certified or
Yep.
allowed the town to participate in has occurred, and the construction's ongoing. They've got 1 foot in the Chicopee Public Safety Center. But the meeting last Friday was at the Salter Center.
okay.
I zoomed in, I didn't see it, but I guess I'll go there this Friday. So
So it's moving along now.
it's moving along. Yep.
Good question.
Yes.
Mary, with respect to service here in East Long Meadow, I've heard nothing. So my assumption is that our calls are timely and our residents are being, appropriately assisted when there's an emergency.
Yeah, yes. The issue that I referred to, it has to do with the radios and the frequency. Long Meadow and East Long Meadow sometimes share a frequency. So there's some of the police activity that you might hear on a frequency that it doesn't belong to East Long Meadow, and they can hear it, and that's a problem. But the major issue is the vendor for our radios. It's a company called Horizon. It's based in Arizona. So when things go wrong, and they did last week, briefly, East Long Meadow's record management is somehow monitored through the radio system or connected to it. So when they need to check a record on a stop or an arrest, whatever, they were losing connectivity. And the answer from Horizon, they don't have a local representative as to handle emergency requests. That's what we're a little bit upset about.
Okay.
We've talked to the director several times about having Horizon maintain a subcontractors list or some local entity that we can get prompt service from. So I think we'll get a resolution to that, but that's been the issue more than the service itself.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mary?
You good?
Okay, we'll move on then. We have approval of minutes, the December 13th, 2022 open session minutes.
I move to approve the December 13, 2022 open session minutes.
I will second that.
Having a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. The December 13th executive session minutes.
I motion to approve December 13, 2022 executive session minutes.
I'll second the motion.
Great. Is there any further discussion on them? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Communications, correspondence, and announcements. As far as communications go, we have received a number of communications in support of the new restaurant that's looking to go in, which we will discuss later tonight. Other than that, it's Jeannie, do you have anything this month? Nothing really?
No.
Okay. What I'd like to do before we go into the public hearing is we've been asked if we could move item 9D 1, the petition for the zone change to 312 Prospect Street forwards. Would someone like to make a motion to do that?
I move we take item 9D1 out of order to consider now, and then once that's complete, we move back to the public hearings, item number 8.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh, how are you?
Thank you for having me early. My kids are with a babysitter, so.
The clock is
The
ticking.
clock is ticking, exactly. So you are petitioning the council to consider a zone change for 312 Parker Street.
That's correct.
Would you like to just give us a quick overview?
Sure. So 312 Parker, and if I sent a letter along and it has a map that I think would be most useful in looking at it. It's like this. 312 Parker is an oddly shaped lot in residential, sorry, I believe it's AA. And it's got 90 foot of front, it goes back very far. And so you have an odd shaped lot. And my client owns 312 and 322 just to the north of it, which is residential A. And what my client would like to do at the end, in the end game here, is do a approval not required plan, which would append some of 312 Parker, the back part of it, to his daughter who lives on Rollins, and then reconfigure 322 and 312 to make non-conforming lots. So whereas there's one previously non-conforming lot, which is 312, and he would end up with 2 conforming lots with the sufficient frontage. And what I mean by non-conforming lot, I should start with that. 90 feet is less than what the zoning would require in that zone currently. But to make that change requires the zone change. So that's why I'm here today. And really, this is given where 312 is, right on the border between AA and A, this would just change the line a little bit.
Okay, so being here to petition, what you're basically doing is asking if we think this has merit so that we can refer it to the planning board. Ultimately, the planning board will hold a public hearing on it and then make a recommendation back to us what their thoughts are. If everyone's in agreement that this has merit, I would suggest that we make a motion to forward this to the planning board.
I move to refer the petition for a zone change for 312 Parker Street from residential AA to residential A to the planning board for review and recommendation.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on it? Do we have to have a roll call vote on this or just a regular
No.
vote?
And then.
Yep.
That.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, we will send it off to the planning board.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your consideration and moving me up.
See you
Great.
soon.
Okay. Next up is public hearings. This is a public hearing for a liquor license transfer, change of ownership, interest, change of DBA of an all alcohol beverages on premises license at 53 North Main Street, East Long Meadow, Mass. to Mess LLC, DBA East Village Tavern. Council members present are on Zoom, Michael Kane, Connor O'Shea, Marilyn Richards, Ralph Page, Kathy Hill, Matt Boucher, Anna Jones. I would ask the clerk to read the legal notice into the record.
Notice is hereby given under chapter 138 of the general laws that Mess LLC DBA Craft 32 Bistro and Events has applied for a liquor license transfer, change of officers, directors, LLC managers, change of ownership interest, and change of DBA of an all alcohol beverages on premises license at 53 North Main Street, East Long Meadow, Massachusetts, to Mess LLC DBA East Village Tavern. The town council will hold a public hearing on the application January 10, 2023, at 6:15 PM at the Council on Aging Media Room, 328 North Main Street, or via Zoom webinar. For the council, Jean R. Quaglitti, Town Clerk of the Council.
Great, thank you. So the way this will work is I'll ask the applicant to explain what they're looking to do. Then I'll open it up to public comment, whether you're for it or against it. If you'd like to come up and speak, then I'll bring it back to the board for discussion before a vote. So at this time,
All right, thank
you
you.
have the floor. What would you like?
My name's Dan Kelly. I'm the lawyer in Springfield. To my left is John Sullivan, one of the two proposed owners, new owners, I should say. And John is the also proposed new manager. This is a restaurant that's been in your town for some time. It was originally known as Bentley's, went through a name change to Craft 32. Then there's another new name change for you tonight. A little bit about John Sullivan. He's tip certified, and as an aside, everyone that will work at that establishment will be tip certified as a condition of employment. John's life work is working in the adult food industry. You know, he's been working in bars pretty much his entire adult life. Most recently, he's been a power owner of Nathan Bill's in Springfield, which has been a hugely successful bar in the East Forest Park neighborhood. It has a East Forest Park, an Irish, I say, centric theme, which will be a little bit different than what they're doing here in East Long Meadow, and I'll get to that in a second. But East Forest Park community has endorsed them every single time they had to come in front of the liquor board. And I see the longtime chairman here behind me, he made references as well. The neighborhood supported them, whether we adding a function hall, whatever they were doing, changing things inside, they always had the support of their neighborhood council. That's important to them. They go to the neighborhood first to get their support before going to the board. It'll be equally as important for Mr. Sullivan here to immerse himself in this community. He's a resident. He grew up in Springfield. He's a resident of Hamden. He's right over the line. If you had stopped in there recently, you'll know that Mr. Sullivan has recently been brought on as an employee to kind of bring things online. Hopeful that you'll vote favorable for his ownership. He and his wife, who is also here, Jesse, here is if you've been inside, you've probably seen her as well. They're both extremely hard workers. Joseph Sullivan is not here. He's traveling. He is, I guess we could describe it as his honeymoon. From my understanding. My understanding he's in someplace in Asia right now, but he also is a part owner of Nathan Bills, and has been a longtime supporter of different causes. A little about their charitable works. If you know anything about Nathan Bills, you know that charity works are extremely big for other purposes, not for tonight, for other purposes. We were once counting up how much money they may have raised for different charities. We stopped when we got into the over $1 million. They have runs. I mean, every single fundraiser you could think of in Springfield is somehow connected or run out of the Nathan Bills. They also look to do the similar things here. Nathan Bills is not just a restaurant sports bar. You can go see it. You can watch the Red Sox there, the Bruins there, the Celtics, but guess what? You can also watch a Central football game there. You can watch Pope Francis hockey game there. During COVID, when parents couldn't go inside to see their kids play high school sports, they ran those on the screen for the parents there. They're looking to do similar things here with East Long Meadow Sports, and you'll see a lot of involvement of East Long Meadow community. While this site does not lend itself well to humongous 5K runs, they'll be doing their own version of charitable events if they can in the community. With respect to what's going on at the restaurant, you probably have noticed an infusion of life. You know, new owners come in and they're ready to go. They're the young puppy waving their tail. That's what's going on here, but that tail will continue to wag while they work there. John and Jesse have been on as employees for a couple of months. They've changed the menu. They've changed the cook. They've cleaned the place from top to bottom. They've gone out back and cleaned up the brook that runs behind their property. John's father did that. They've done everything they can to become show you that they are going to be good neighbors, just like they have been in their other establishment. I've distributed to your town clerk a menu of the proposed menu of what they're going to have on tap for you over at the East Village Tavern. If you've done your due diligence, you've looked on a Facebook posting or the internet, that it's the same exact thing, but that's what they're really looking to do. I can tell you, I've been there myself. The food is outstanding. You will not be disappointed. Mr. Sullivan is a hard worker, and you will be glad to have him as an operator in your town. And I'll let other people speak to that as well. Generally speaking, this is going to be Mr. Sullivan's full-time job. He will have an ownership interest in Nathan Bills, but there's other people there. There's other managers there. He's going to come here and take over. When you walk into to this place here, he'll be the face of the place. You'll see him there when you're there. Almost anytime it's open, certainly during the peak hours, he will be there. And so will his wife a lot of times too, Jesse. You'll get to know the staff there. They're going to be very welcoming. We'll be very happy to have him there. It's a really relatively routine type of transaction. You know, the money is comprised both of the assumption of the loan is also a cash payment, which I already have in my trustee account. Mr. Sullivan has been licensed in other areas before. I just mentioned, Springfield. He's tip certified. Everyone there will be tip certified. They've given you a little bit of a glimpse over the past couple of weeks of what they can do there. They will continue to do that should you vote favorably on their application. Unless you have any questions, I'll leave it at that. I know there's another special permit process here, and we'll be filing that as well, probably this week. I know that ABCC process, should we get through here, your initial approval is a multi-month process. I assume very quickly that I could have these issues in front of the planning board. We look to mirror in front of the planning board the exact application that we have here with respect to occupancy and things like that. We'll reduce the occupancy to 98. As well. I know John has met with other various town department heads, department boards. We think it went very well, a very productive meeting. What this will not be, and I know there's some concern, we've heard it as well. This is not going to be a nightclub. This is going to be what it is over there. John already has a place that's open to 2 a.m. This obviously will not be. He's looking very, very happy to own an establishment that's going to be closing a lot earlier than 1 a.m. on many nights. They've been there for a couple of weeks, and they've closed early several weeks when the business doesn't require it, when people aren't there. So that's not what your town is getting. Your town is getting a well-run restaurant that serves, yes, local beers and national beers, but also has a food-centric establishment idea to it. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any quick questions before I open it up to the public? Marilyn.
I'll get mine out of the way. First of all, welcome. It's a restaurant. We know it's a restaurant. The title says tavern.
It does. So
And we, and I'm sure you've heard it and you'll hear it when you go to the planning board. We don't allow taverns to exist just as a tavern. And so it sends a mixed message. And I was wondering if you might think about perhaps adding something to the title or changing it a little bit so people know it's a restaurant rather than a tavern.
I was I was a little, I think I was a little taken aback initially, and now that I've read your zoning regs, I know exactly what you're referring to.
Okay,
Right.
okay,
The definition of a tavern in your zoning regs is a place that only serves alcohol, right?
correct.
Obviously, this is not that. I guess maybe it's something.
And I know that.
They thought tavern meant something different. They thought tavern meant restaurant. That's a tavern, but I guess maybe whoever drew your zoning regs, it meant something different to them. So, we'll certainly take your input and I'll talk to, my client, but, we're willing to, stipulate that the kitchen will be going when they're serving alcohol, things of that nature.
And I understand that. I just know that it will send a different message. And I just want to make sure that we're clear on what's happening there.
Yes, I know there's another establishment in town that has a tavern sign as well. I know they're a restaurant as well. So we've talked about that. I think it's just cutting up what the word of tavern is. And we know it's in your zoning regs.
That's pretty.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to open it up to. any
Ralph?
comments.
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
And I wouldn't call it a question, but I'd call it a suggestion, and I would ask to take it under consideration to amend a motion, not only to approve the liquor license transfer, but to approve the manager as well. When we get to that point.
Yeah, I thought that was part of
It is,
may not be under the, okay,
It's the two.
it wouldn't hurt to put it in the motion.
okay. Thank you, Mike. Good suggestion. Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and speak for or against this? Please come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
I'm not used to this side.
I know. Feels different, doesn't
It
it?
does feel different. I didn't know what to do for a second, for more than a second. Good evening. My name is Paul Federici from 19 Hampton Road, and I'm here on behalf of John. John, I haven't known John a long time, but I've been in his establishment. We've talked. I know the charitable work he's done because I've been involved in some of the golf tournaments and whatnot. And he does a lot of that. And I also know that he's put his heart and soul into Craft 32. I love the previous owners, but the place was floundering. Let's put it, I'll try to be nice, but it was floundering. And John came in and he's turned the place around in a short period of time. And it's become very popular, and we look forward to going there. And I just think he's a great owner. It's a great place. I think it would be, it would behoove the town to welcome him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Frank Bryan, president of the East Forest Park Civic Association. Been a resident of East Forest Park since 1968 for 54 years, active in the association for 33. I've played many roles there. I know this family. They are remarkable. You have a letter from me stating all of the things they did prior to COVID, remarkable things that they did during it. And just there's innumerable times that they have assisted very needy families, wonderful causes throughout the city. I think they'd be a credit to your community. And the board of East Forest Park highly recommends John Sullivan.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Hi, how are you?
Sure. I'm Chris Caputo. I live on Abbott Street in Springfield. I was actually president of the East Forest Park Civic Association when Sully petitioned the city to open Nathan Bill's. They made several promises to us, not be a problem. They have not in over 9 years. They said that they would get involved in the neighborhood. They have been. They've been very charitable to the neighborhood, both through his wife's charity, Jesse's Fight, as well as the Gunnery Sergeant Tommy Sullivan charity. Those are their two that they directly control, and several other local charities that they're so numerous, I forget them all. So I would also highly recommend them as well. They've kept their promises to the neighborhood. Every single time they've gone for an expansion, they've had unanimous approval of the neighborhood council. So I would say they are very good neighbors, and you guys will be very lucky to have them. Don't steal them all from Springfield. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Evening.
Good evening. I'm Pete Signator, and I moved to East Forest Park in 1982. And I've been a licensed commissioner in Springfield since 2003. I have seen many licensees come and go, some good, some unfortunately not so good. The location of Nathan Bill's began as a college bar when I was president of the East Forest Park Civic Association. So I have that claim to fame. It was against our wishes, but the license was approved. And it was our first pouring license in East Forest Park, and it was pretty much a disaster for a couple of years. And then the two sons of the owners of the Blue Eagle on Worthington Street downtown took it over, and they brought it into a legitimate restaurant, very small kitchen. It struggled for a while, but it was certainly a far cry over the college bar we had. And then they sold it to Mr. Sullivan. Over the years, you may have heard this too, I've had many prospective licensees tell me they want to open a Cheers bar. In other words, a bar where everyone knows your name. John has expanded the kitchen. He's expanded the serving area. He has turned what was a moderately successful restaurant into Springfield's version of Cheers. There has not been a time when I have visited Nathan Bill's when I have not run into someone from our neighborhood, someone from City Hall, someone from some other part of Springfield, old coworkers from Mass Mutual. It's amazing how many people I run into when I visit there. Patrons of Nathan Bill's are from every sector of the socioeconomic spectrum. Everyone is there just to share in the camaraderie of a wonderful gathering spot for friends, neighbors, and coworkers. The beer is ice cold and the food is delicious. We asked my 82-year-old mother-in-law, where do you want to go for your birthday? You can go anywhere. Why don't we go to Nathan Bill's? Okay. I do not step outside Springfield very often on behalf of one of my licensees, but I am proud to make a recommendation that Craft 32 license be transferred to Mr. Sullivan. I have every confidence that under Mr. Sullivan's East Village Tavern, will become a East Long Meadows gathering spot, much like Nathan Bill's has become Springfield's. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi,
Hi, how are you tonight?
good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I am Diane Sullivan Karen. I am Joe Sullivan's sister, who is indefinitely on his honeymoon. So he asked me to come tonight. He also asked me to come because he made me a promise. He said that if he opened a business with John in East Long Meadow, they would do charitable works with me. I actually own Hazel the Salon in East Long Meadow, which you guys graciously approved in the middle of the pandemic while telling me I was crazy. Because I couldn't open. So again, we have been planning on doing charities together. We've already worked with Toys for Tots together, things for like that in the town. So I look forward to having the East Village Tavern as an asset here. Okay.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
Well, good evening, gang. Hi, my name is Sid Starks, 28 Elm Street. And as many of you know, I'm an abutter to Craft 32 currently. And over the years, as many of you know, who've been on the planning board, we've had challenges, not with just Craft 32, but other businesses throughout the community. I will say that Mr. Sullivan has come forward. Any concerns that we've had, he has immediately taken them on, and it was only in conversation, not in writing. So I would wholeheartedly encourage you to welcome Mr. Sullivan to East Long Meadow, because I've been there too. It's a great restaurant, and I feel he'll be a great neighbor to East Long Meadow, the residents and the businesses here in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Name and address for the record.
I wasn't planning to talk, but
That's okay.
my name is Barry Krieger. I live in West Springfield at 157 Gibson Way.
She looks familiar.
Saying that. Looks familiar.
I'm in disguise. But I've known Sully and Joe Sullivan for about 7 years after Tommy Sullivan was murdered down in Kentucky, Tennessee. And I got to know the family. I got to know Nathan Bills, and I got to see how the Sullivans do business. And it's just, I've never seen such a commitment to the community and to the neighborhood. And you see how they treat their employees and how the employees look to you. They run a business that, in my view, is chaotic, but it makes it work. You know, it all comes together because of this man's hard work and Joe Sullivan's hard work in your organization. You know what you're doing. I think you'd be lucky to have these people doing business in your community. I can't see anything that would slow it down because these are people that know how to run a business and run it well. And I should mention that even though Nathan Bills is kind of a bar, I brought some of my neighbors from what I call, it's an age-restricted condominium development. I call it the OFCC, the Old Parts Condo Complex. And I brought some people there to Nathan Bills, and Jeannie Trink said she had the best hamburger she's ever had in her life at Nathan Bills, and we've gone back there. I know that they pay a lot of attention to the menu. They hire serious chefs. So it's not just a bar, it's a serious restaurant. So that's my recommendation.
Great,
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Carrie Sullivan, 99 Eddywood Street. I am not related to John Sullivan, but I have known him since preschool. So I guess with the same last name, we've known each other for a very long time. I am the former president of the Springfield St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, and this year, Nathan Bills has been honored with our Karen Award. And the Karen Award is given annually to a business or person in the community who has gone above and beyond anything to help support our committee. And John Sullivan, Joe Sullivan, and the family at Nathan Bills has done just that. Last year, we had our tartan officially baptized at Nathan Bills. We needed to get it done before the St. Patrick's Day season, and Joe, John, Jess, anything they could do to help us get that going and be successful, they went above and beyond to make that happen. They are an asset. I live in East Forest Park. They are an asset to our community. They bring people together. It's a meeting place. I'm also a teacher in Springfield, and they do a lot for the teachers community. They've had several fundraisers for students, including students of mine who needed vans because their parents were unable to afford handicap vans to bring them to school. They've done many meetings for teachers when our union hall just hasn't been too big. My father is a former fireman in Springfield. They've done many fundraisers to help firemen who have been hurt in the line of duty. They're just a great business. I'm proud to live in East Forest Park and have people who care about their business also have a business in that part of town. So I think it would be a great thing to have in East Long Meadow. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Kate Karen. I live at 600 Glendale Road, Wilbraham, Massachusetts. I know I'm not a resident of East Long Meadow, but I had the amazing opportunity to have John Sullivan as my boss for over 5 years. And his mentorship and his ability as an owner to mentor individuals has shaped me to the young woman I am today. And I mean that in every single way possible. So through not only just working there as a hostess, a waitress, an expo at Nathan Bills Bar and Restaurant, but his ability as a manager to take me and shape me and persevere me and push me to the opportunities I have today as a female in business are ones that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Through the charitable outreach and teaching how to hold events and run charities and run events and organizations is just, it's really shaped me to who I am today. And the ability that is given me through his ownership and management is truly, thank you. And thank you for that, because without him as a manager and molding me throughout my teenage years, I wouldn't be where I am today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I would bring this back to the board at this time. Does the council have any questions, comments, thoughts? So I've got a couple. And you've already addressed some of them. So on the application, there's going to be some adjustments that'll have to be made. They're minor. You talked about it before about the seating capacity. Just want it to be the same as what the special permit is.
Yes, we'll go to 98. Thank you.
Yep. And the description right above it, we just need to adjust that to, again, match the special permit. It's more just making sure both of them are in compliance with each other. I do know, and I'm gonna ask Jeannie on this, there is a temporary alcohol license for the side deck. And that's not
It's not before.
this time part of this application. And it runs out, what is it, April 1st, I think it is. Is that something that,
You'll be seeing, should you vote favorably on this, you'll be seeing us come back on that with expansion.
okay,
Yes.
for that temporary portion or,
No, I think for the permanent work structure.
okay. Well, and so the main reason I'm asking is I'm thinking March is probably an important month. And there may be a function outside and I just,
We'll work with your town clerk to get that done. But I think that the governor has it extended to April 1st, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Are you concerned with the DBA name on the temporary license? Being
Yes.
Craft 32. So a thought that I have is that as part of the motion, you extend the approval to the temporary license, but that's up to the council. Or have a separate motion.
okay. Like I said, I just want to cover all bases. I don't want you to think everything's done and then all of a sudden find out that it's not done for you. Jeannie,
And that temporary license does not go to the state. That's under your local authority here.
Right.
So you could even do that if you want to do it a separate issue at your February meeting.
yeah,
To give it more thought.
and that way there we
Time to,
get through this and, okay.
Perfect.
because I don't think you'll have the DBA approval by February 14th in the ABCC.
Obviously with the couple of changes for seating, we're just gonna need a new high-tech inside design. I don't think that'll be difficult, actually, but just so that it reflects the number of seats accurately. Other than that, I didn't see anything else. Did anyone notice or have any questions?
No.
The menu looks wonderful.
It does.
I have been in, the hamburgers are wonderful, thank you. So, what is the wish of the board? I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I move we,
Oh, go ahead, Hannah.
I move to
ahead.
close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, or is it a roll call?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Marilyn, Connor, and Mike.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing has been closed. Then do I have a motion to approve with amendments?
We want to add the change of manager, right?
Correct.
Right. So would I would probably add that in after change of DBA.
Correct.
and Just add change of manager.
Excuse me,
Including change, I mean.
I wouldn't say change of manager. I would just say naming John Sullivan as manager. Because the
It's not really,
proposed license
it's new.
is right.
Okay.
So give it a whirl and we'll. correct.
Wait. Okay. I motion to approve a liquor license transfer, change of ownership, interest, change of doing business as, and manager John Sullivan of an all alcoholic beverages on premises license at 53 North Main Street, East Long Meadow, Massachusetts, to Mess LLC, doing business as East Village Tavern, contingent on the approval of a successful special permit and a state review of application.
A second.
You okay with that?
Amendments. Did you say the amendments, including the amendments?
She named him as
I
a,
named him in the,
I did.
About the occupancy. Are those the amendments you're talking about? One of the new floor plan and then the changing the occupancy.
Yeah, the new floor
Description.
plan and that
Description,
description in this.
right?
So do you guys want to do,
Can we do a separate motion for that?
Just amend it. Amend it and include it at.
so is there a motion to amend what's on the floor to include the occupancy permit as stated on the special permit and the new floor plan?
I move to amend the motion to change the occupancy stated on the application along with the description on the application as presented
To match the special
to
permit.
match the special permit.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion made and seconded on the amendment. I think we can do this without a roll call vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. So as amended, we have a motion on the floor. That motion's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Anna,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Okay, I think we've done it. I thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Down. That wasn't so hard.
It's nice to have.
In the audience.
It's
Yeah,
great.
nice having company. I know. They'll probably leave me know. Welcome.
Okay. So we have a public hearing which was advertised for 6:30 and we are running late, but it is 6:53. So this is a public hearing to approve a $40,000 from the Community Preservation Act Historical Fund account for a maps and plans preservation project per chapter 185, section 3C of the town's bylaws. Council members present are Anna Jones, Matt Boucher, Kathy Hill, Ralph Page, Marilyn Richards, Connor O'Shea, and Michael Kane. I would ask the clerk to read the legal notice into the record.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on January 10, 2023 at 6:30 PM in the media room of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address a Community Preservation Act application for a maps and plans preservation project. Information relating to this application is available for review by the public in the town clerk's office and on the town's website. Public hearing may also be via Zoom webinar for the council, Janar Quaglity, town clerk of the council.
Thank you. Mr. Torcha, I would ask that you come forwards and give us a few words. Exactly what have you recommended?
Yes, so we have recommended the MAPS project. This will be kind of on top of the records project that the council had approved last year. This will be updating and preserving records, planning documents, maps and other documents that are in the basement. Jeannie's the applicant, so I think she has a little bit more information on kind of the specifics, but it would largely mirror that previous project that was approved last year, and all of the upgrades would basically be made in the basement. So it's entirely there.
So Jeannie, this is through King.
Information systems, and Chris, the representative, is here tonight too, which you can probably follow myself with the more technical aspects of the project. But as you all know, the basement project that was done last year is phenomenal, and just to search for records and have everything categorized and have records retention, just the schedule at our fingertips is wonderful. So while that work was being done, the people working on it had the maps and plans and kind of put them in a separate area. And to have another project like the records that were not maps and plans. This piggybacks that. There are maps and plans also on the third floor of the town hall that King Information knows about. They'll be integrated into this. And I know Diane Bishop mentioned she's got some assessor's maps in her office she'd like to be included too. So this is it's piggybacking the files and those records that have been done already. And once this is done, I'd like to come forth, digitize those maps and plans, because that's a big request of the plan, but we can't digitize what we don't know is there already. So King Information's employee, she will actually go through every map and plan, see if there's any redundancies. There could be the same map, but for conservation, then one for DPW. So we'd keep those. And they'd be categorized in the same format as the other files were. And they feel we can keep some of our shelving that's already there, those flat drawers. So that's what the plan is, and hopefully they can get that done. The files were done in June, so we're not wasting any time. I just want to keep this going to get everything up to date. So I know Chris is here to answer questions too about the aspect of the project.
This also has a searchable database in the computer so that, you know, you can bring up something and then it says, go down aisle this, row this.
Exactly.
This is where to plan.
I know I've used it, planning has used it. I can just look at, so yeah, you're right. It'll be shelf 1, box 2, and it'll have the year and everything. We can go right to it. And the same thing for maps and plans, but it's a unique system. I think that's the same but different. So
I have a question.
Great.
I've dealt with systems like that in my previous world. And the question is, when you take something out and use it, is there a way that you're certain it goes back to where you got it from? You know, in terms of, you know, like putting the library book back where you took it from.
you know, I've gone down to the basement many times, and there was some files that were not in the right place, and I made sure that they're put in the right place. So I'm keeping an eye on it. So hopefully, you know, it's up to who's ever doing it that they'll put it back where they found it. I do keep an eye on the basement myself.
All right, okay, because that's obviously important.
Yeah, in fact, there's been some things stored down there that aren't files and records. I'm actually going to put out a department head email to say the only things that should be in the basement are records and files. It's not to be a dumping ground again. In fact, we've cleaned out a room there that will be a holding area for people to put records down there to integrate into our annual audit. So
Also, there was, and this goes back back to when Marge LaRocca was still here, there was a box of information from the selectman's office. And I don't know where that box ended up, but it was just piles of paperwork. And that was where she found the used car regulations that we had talked about. And so I'm just curious if that box ended up into your area so that hopefully that information would also be.
there were many boxes from the selectmen.
Well, I only knew about one.
They went through file by file, and that's all categorized.
So it's okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So if you find anything, I guess, you know, when we had our change of government, we were told that any laws that were enacted at that time were, you know, transferred forward, and it's up to the council now to look at some of these things and determine if we, you know, accept them as written, repeal them. And I'm, you know, and as I said, the used car regulations is the only one that I'm actually knowledgeable of, but I'm sure there may be other things that end up being categorized. I guess, you know, how do we know it's there?
So King Information are the experts. They do this on a day-to-day basis. So it's up to them to categorize where they see fit. I was asked questions a few times where I thought something should go, but there's always cross-references too.
Okay.
That you can search on the database.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie.
And usually the people that are looking know what they're looking for. I know that Nina in planning uses it a lot. I do. I think John Fontaine Accounting has used it, as far as I know.
I will also add the Historical Commission recommended the project. I know that our planning director, Bailey Mitchell, also recommended the project, as did Mary. So it was a very thorough application. And also I have to commend Jeannie. She, in the last project, continually updated our committee with letters and then indicating when the project was fully complete. So that's typically what we would expect out of an applicant. So really appreciated that as well, just as context.
Yeah, to me, this is just the natural step to preserving the records in the town hall.
So can I have you come forwards from King?
Oh, Chris is great. Chris is virtual.
Okay.
He's virtual.
I can see that far. So if you can bring them in, I've got a question. Thanks, Don.
I'm looking at the gentleman in the office thinking he's Chris.
I can barely see the back of it.
Hi, Mike.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I've been listening along, and as the couple of folks have mentioned, it's sort of the clear next component in really pulling together what was a chaotic situation downstairs, and we did isolate a space that we can use for the maps and plans. There are many flat map cabinets that are in that room that we're hoping to reuse, reorganize, and probably stack a little bit better, so that the equipment in this scenario is minimal in terms of anything new, and it is literally someone that knows the records that they're reviewing, comparing them for duplications, and or as happens so many times, there are many submissions before an as-built is approved. But what the goal here is certainly is to get the room minimized to what is important for compliance perspective and operational perspective. And then you have then a platform, a base in which, as Jeannie mentioned, you might start to digitize some of that and make it centrally available to your entire operation, potentially even at some point, if you were comfortable from a security perspective, you can make it sort of linked available to on your website. So there's kind of layers to which you can bring this to the future, and turn it into a kind of modern digitized version. But the step one is obviously making sure you know everything that's there, have it cataloged, have it organized by location so it's searchable, as was mentioned before. And now the steps or the movement forward is all done in an efficient manner.
So Chris, one of my questions is, I know when I was in the planning department, all of our maps upstairs were hung in a separate type of cabinet.
Right.
They go downstairs. Are you looking to lay them flat? Are we looking to roll them? Is it a combination?
So we have found that laying them flat in the cabinets provides for a large volume stacked, and our preference, or when we're starting at ground zero, let's say, and a community does not already have a dozen or 15 or 20 of these flat mat cabinets, we use a roll aspect and sort of a library shelving system that looks sort of similar to the other record retention system that we've installed, except the boxes are kind of a deep square that you can then put the rolls into. And each one of those deep squares has an address the same way that the box locations on the other system have an address. And the maps themselves then have a key marker that attaches to that. So physically you can track the way that the maps are kept. But we prefer the roll because we feel like it allows you to move singularly through a map easier than when they're put in the flat map in the flat mat cabinets.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So in your case in particular, though, what we're really looking at is taking just one wall of that room and adding maybe 2 or 3 sections of shelving with that kind of library system on it, and utilizing each drawer as a location in the database itself.
Okay. Anyone have any questions real quick? It is a public hearing. I would like to open this up to the public at this time. See if anyone has any questions. Okay, seeing none, I will bring this back to the board. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
And this is just a regular vote, correct, Jeannie?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, is there any further discussions for John on this?
Motion made?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Marilyn made the motion.
No.
No, Connor made it.
Sorry, Connor made the motion.
I
Marilyn
seconded
seconded it.
I know not to get in your way.
Oh, no, you're.
Thank you.
I think the project is great
Yeah, I
going
do
forwards.
too.
To look at the basement now compared to when I was on the planning board, it's completely different. Things are so organized. It's so much easier to find stuff. It is amazing. And to continue it, I just think this is a great way to use these funds. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion for the project to approve?
I move to approve $40,000 from the Community Preservation Act Historical Fund account for a maps and plans preservation project.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. This is a roll call vote, correct? I will ask for a roll call vote for the approval. Start with Anna,
Yes.
Matt. Yes. Kathy.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn.
Yes.
Connor.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations, John. That one is passed.
Thank you.
And Jeannie.
Thank you, Jeannie. Well, John's used to coming here and getting beat
Beat
up
up.
some.
Been here once or
Guys for that. Okay. We have a 6:45 public hearing, which obviously we're running late for. Slide to that one. This is a public hearing to approve $160,000 from the Community Preservation Act Housing Fund account for the third and final phase of the window replacements at Quarry Hill. Council members present are Anna Jones, Matthew Boucher, Bill, Ralph Page, Marilyn Richards, Connor O'Shea, and Michael Kane. I would ask Jeannie to read the legal notice into the record.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on January 10, 2023 at 6:45 PM. in the media room of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address a Community Preservation Act application for the third and final phase of window replacements at Quarry Hill. Information relating to this application is available for review by the public in the town clerk's office and on the town's website. The public hearing may also be attended via Zoom webinar. For the council, Jean R. Quaglietti, of the council.
Thank you. Okay. We have Mr. Torsia here. Would you please go into a little explanation of what we're looking for in the recommendation of the CPC?
Yeah, so this is a recommendation for window replacements at Quarry Hill. So as you all might know, there are units that residents live in. These windows, I think, have never been replaced before. And Lynn's here this evening as well, so she can also answer some questions as well on the application. These would be replacing them and updating them. There has already been 2 phases completed. So this would be supporting the third and final phase of the window replacements. We've previously, as a committee, approved other projects at Quarry Hill. So this is sort of a familiar area for the committee. And this falls pretty much under the affordable housing category that we have as a community preservation. I will add, I want to update the council on just some financial numbers for some further context. The housing update or the housing account currently has, it's our largest account. It has $303,885.51. With no major, this was from a little bit ago, but there's been no major bills or anything that I'm aware of. There was a slight delay with the state trust fund distribument. And that trust fund total was $120,656. Now, this is not just for one account. This is for the entire, all 4 or 5 accounts. Because the budget, we had a historic surplus as a state. There was an additional surplus on top of that 120,000. So in December, the community received $25,677, which equals out to a 38.5% matching fund for the community. So roughly, I don't know what the local amount that we received, but if you based off the 38.5% matching fund, I came to about $380,000 that was brought in locally, which would mean that for the most recent fiscal year, the whole fund took in $526,333 approximately. Give or take a few thousand or two, my rough math here. But that is not reflected in the number that I just said in the affordable housing account. So just to give you an idea of kind of where we're at, I would still, consider the housing in particular a fairly healthy amount. This is the first time in almost a decade that we've recommended a project from to come out of the affordable housing category. So yeah, if you have any questions or any more questions specifically on the project, I know Lynn's very intimately involved in it being the applicant.
So does the council have any quick questions? Okay, I'm going to open this up because it's a public hearing to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to ask a question? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board. So Lynn, I had a chance to look through your 75 pages that you submitted.
God bless.
It's been a long winter so far, not much to do. I noticed that the windows are on your FY 25 and 26 for capital improvement. So I'm assuming this is going to, if you receive the funds tonight, it's just gonna move this up so that you don't have to think about those and people don't have to worry about drafty windows for the next few years.
Yes, you are correct. With my CIP, we have, the state gives me like a.
So Don, do you need her to step up next to the mic?
If she would.
If you would, sorry about that, Lynn.
Thank you, Rob.
With the state, they give me a chunk of change like every year to do a certain amount of projects. And the windows was part of that project. And what happened is if I have emergencies that come up that are not in the budget, naturally, anything that's in my budget just keeps going down to year after year after year. So they were going to push the windows down, like you said. So that's why I came to the CPC and I asked them for just submitted my application.
So I did notice on your budget for 25 and 26, you have 186,000 for the windows. Is that because the additional money is anticipated an increase in prices? Well, I guess what I'm asking is the 160,000 going to cover it?
I'm pretty positive it's going to cover it. It's probably going to come in less.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. Like I said, I just knowing what you've submitted as a budget and knowing what went to the CPC, just double checking. And I did notice there's like $10,000 in administrative costs that the housing covers.
For the architect.
Didn't go through CPC. Did anyone else get to read the 75 pages?
I did.
Awesome. Is there any additional questions at this time?
Clear.
Seeing nothing from the audience, I would entertain a motion at this time to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I didn't want to steal your thunder.
Having a motion made and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then I would look for a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll motion to approve $160,000 from the Community Preservation Act Housing Fund account for the third and final phase of the window replacements at Quarry Hill.
I'll second that.
And Anna seconds it. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. Anna?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Great. Congratulations.
Much.
With it.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm sure the tenants will be thrilled to get new windows.
They're thrilled just to look out the windows. That's been the highlight of windows in the first two phases. They're telling me they can actually see out of them. I'm like, are you kidding me? I never even knew that. They were just like, oh, I can see out of my windows now. Like,
Wonderful.
who knows? Yes, wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Happy boss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, we have under licensing matters, 9A1. We have the approval of a one-day liquor license for St. Paul the Apostle Church.
All right, I motion to approve a one-day liquor license for St. Paul the Apostle Church, 235 Dwight Road, for a Vietnamese New Year celebration on January 15th, 2023.
I'll second that motion.
Jeannie, I noticed on the application, they requested an officer,
Yes.
and that's to be there for all those hours, the 2:30 to 11:30.
And then Jackie, do you know about that? For all the hours?
I assumed only because it was circled like that. But there will be a police officer on site because of the serving and the time. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion made, seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That matter carries. Okay, 9B1. Donations. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve a $1,000 donation from the Wilbraham Funeral Home for Leahy Field improvements and maintenance per Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Second.
And Don, do we have a member in the audience?
Not.
That's okay.
No.
Just wanted to reach out and just to say thank you if we did. We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on it? Other than I think it's wonderful. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to B. We have another $1,000 donation. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve a $1,000 donation from the Springfield Cemetery, for Leahy Field improvements and maintenance for Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Is there a second? I think I heard him say yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next we have a $1,000 donation from Bay Path University.
I motion to approve a $1,000 donation from Bay Path University to fund a special piece of equipment or professional development opportunity for the police department per Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and a fourth donation, another $1,000 from Bay Path. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve a $1,000 donation from Bay Path University to fund a special piece of equipment or professional development opportunity for the fire department, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
Is there a second?
All of them.
Kathy,
Oh, I'm sorry. Second.
having a motion made and seconded. No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no opposed.
It's great that we had that many donations. That's wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Excellent.
It is. Like I said, seeing them come in, it will help out greatly, I'm sure. It's the little donations like that that add up, and it's just wonderful. Okay, so our next business is 9C1. Proposed new bylaw adding the Human Resource Department to Chapter 78. This is a first reading. Is there anyone that would like to volunteer to do the reading?
Sure.
Connor, thank you.
Okay, purpose of to add a description of the HR department to Chapter 78 Human Resources. Chapter 78 Human Resources, comma, Department of. Subsection 78-1. Department head, the town manager shall appoint a director of human resources The Director of Human Resources shall be responsible for the supervision and coordination of matters of the town that are placed under the control by the charter, bylaw, town manager, rules and regulations, or other town vote. Subsection 78-2, composition. The Department of Human Resources shall consist of the Director of Human Resources and include additional employees as required for the efficient operation of the department. Subsection 78-3, duties and responsibilities. The Human Resources Department will provide the leadership, direction, and support necessary to attract, retain, and develop talented individuals to align ourselves with the changing obligations of our town. The Human Resources Department will assist town officials and senior managers in fairly, consistently, and lawfully creating and administering policies and practices that sustain a professional, productive, efficient, and innovative work environment which supports the town and its departments effectively performing their missions. Subsection 78-4, annual report. The Director of Human Resources shall annually prepare and submit to the town manager a report that shall contain all matters pertaining to their department as required by the town manager.
Great, thank you. Tom, can I put you in the hot seat for 2 seconds? So as everyone remembers, in a January meeting, this was one of the articles, one of the bylaws that I believe I had mentioned 3 of them that I'd like put together. I asked Tom if he would compose this. If I remember right, we have a chapter 78, which was reserved for this.
Yep.
And it just didn't have a description, correct?
Correct. I think our thought was there was no director at the time, so we didn't do a write-up for the department. So that basically all the other departments were created with input from the directors of the said departments. And since we didn't have one, we kind of left it blank, figuring it would be easy enough to fill in with after the fact.
And we're basically using a template form for all departments so that they're all consistent.
Yep. Same as the multiple member bodies. So they all kind of look the same and sound the same and act the same.
Does anyone have any questions regarding this or any language? I mean, we're going to be referring this to a general bylaw review committee. They're very good at readjusting and rewording. Typically not Tom's, but mine's. So if there's no questions, I would entertain a motion.
So I'll make a motion to refer a proposed new bylaw adding the Human Resource Department to chapter 78 to the bylaw review committee for recommendation.
I will second that.
Okay, having a motion made and seconded, any discussion on it? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, that one goes forwards.
Do I have a quick question, please?
Yes.
On the bylaw committee, this is the first reading. Do we meet in between readings? And bring to the second reading the recommended changes?
Yes. So
last time, right?
So the general bylaw committee will meet between now and our next meeting.
Got it.
They will look it over. They will make recommendations. Our next meeting for a bylaw on the second reading is at a public hearing. So they'll give their recommendations. Anyone from the public will have input.
Perfect.
And either we'll recraft it if we need to, based on the public input, or we'll take a vote on it.
Thanks. All right.
And that way there, it's not delayed. You get
I didn't want to,
exactly extend it out.
bureaucratic gobbledygook. Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have next item of business is a proposed removal of chapter 335. So this is another bylaw that was mentioned in January. Actually, we need to do a first reading of it. Would someone like to read this?
I'll do.
Go ahead, Kathy. Thank you.
Purpose, the current bylaw is not needed. Remove chapter 335 firearms in its entirety. History, adopted by the town council of the town of East Long Meadow as chapter section 8.080 and section 8.110 of the 1982 general bylaws, amendments noted where applicable. Section 335-1, discharge of firearms within town, rifles larger than 22 caliber, pistols larger than 38 caliber, and shotguns larger than 12 gauge may not be discharged within the limits of the town without a permit from the town manager. This section shall not apply to law enforcement personnel in the performance of their official duties. Section 335-2, a fine for carrying firearms on private property. Any person who, without the written permission of the owner, enters upon the improved or unimproved land of another while carrying firearms shall be punished by a fine of $100 for each such offense. This bylaw shall be enforced by police officers and may be administered under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D, the non-criminal disposition of law.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So as you know, this is one that I asked to be brought forward. Jeannie had received a couple phone calls with regards to hunting and stuff. And when we started to look at it, it's my opinion, looking at it very quickly, especially the second part, it doesn't really belong in our general bylaws. If you're breaking the law under firearms, you have a lot more to worry about than $100 zoning fine. That's my opinion on it. I don't think it belongs there. I'd like to send it off to the bylaw committee, receive their opinion, bring it back for a public hearing and see what the general thought is going forwards. And I would also state that when it goes to the bylaw committee, I will ask for our police chief's input on it.
That's my question.
So with that being said, is there any discussion on it? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to refer the proposed removal of the chapter 335 firearms bylaw to the bylaw review committee for recommendation.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. And the petition's done. D2. We have approved the adoption of a fuel efficient vehicle policy for the town's green communities designation. Is Bailey there?
Hi, Bailey.
Hello, I am.
Bailey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
We are wonderful.
I am going to ask if we can allow Catherine to come in as well. She has her hand raised up, so just so when we get the questions, she can help answer any. So this evening, we've kind of have brought essentially exactly the same policy that we came in front of the council with back in, I believe it was September of 2022. And the policy was approved by the school committee, and it also needs to be approved by the town council. So with that, we also have the vehicle inventory that is dated October 5th, 2022, submitted to the council as well. That way you are aware of the non-exempt vehicles that would be affected by the policy. And with that, I also came previously and requested the council submit any questions in advance to give Catherine and potentially the state advance notice so we could get some detailed answers from them. I did not receive any questions from the council in advance to tonight's meeting. So if there are any, I will kind of open the floor to the council at this point.
So at this time, does the council have any quick questions that we can start with?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I've got quite a few, Bailey. As I had talked to you before, I had concerns over exempt vehicles, non-exempt vehicles. it was stated that any vehicle over 8,500 pound GVW is considered exempt. And there's a number of vehicles on here on our inventory that are listed as non-exempt, that I've had the DPW go to the vehicles, inspect their actual tags on them. I've gone to the fueleconomy.gov and researched them, and I'm talking out of 24 vehicles that were listed as non-exempt, I have 15 of them listed that should be. And I'm concerned about dump trucks that have a 14,000 pound GVW that we're saying is non-exempt. I don't know exactly where the inventory came from, how it was figured out that the vehicles are non-exempt. They do not show up on fueleconomy.gov. A matter of fact, no F-350 truck has ever been made that is under 8,500 pounds. And yet we have a number of them listed as non-exempt. I have concerns that we can't even get our own inventory correct.
So to answer the question where it came from, the list was created prior to my employment with the town. And it was created, I believe, by department heads. I know Mary sent out an email before I started, and I believe the list was created. PVPC went through it, and I went through it later as well. And I mean, we can go through it again. We can double check and make sure. But as far as I know, the policy does not necessarily rely on the inventory that is created, or in other words, the inventory is not adopted with the policy. It is just a reference point at this point.
So I guess part of my concern is I'm looking at the inventory under DPW number 5. The model is Toro. It's a 2016. It's a lawnmower. I mean, items like that they stick with me. And I'm concerned that instead of looking at 24 vehicles that I see as non-exempt, it brings it down to 9 vehicles, which 9 vehicles is not a significant number when you're thinking out in the future of having to replace these. I have another concern looking at the policy, the 8,500 pounds. If I worked in the DPW and I was requesting a vehicle, if I just needed a Ford Ranger to literally get one mower around, I would probably ask under my capital plan for a Ford F-250 because I knew it doesn't have to meet the requirements. I know it will be over. I mean, these are things, like I said, I'm looking at from a business perspective, and I understand, I do believe in fuel efficiency. I believe that's, whenever you're purchasing any capital project, you should look at it. I'm not sure if I'm not sure where I stand on this. I mean, like I said, it's been months. I'm aggravated, I guess, is the best way I can word it. But I know, and I've talked to you before, and I don't want this directed at you because I'm not aggravated with you.
Well, so
you've been doing a great job and I appreciate it. And I just know we've had multiple sets of eyes look at an inventory and they still couldn't pick up that we had a lawnmower on it.
So, I mean, I would appreciate that, in advance to the meeting. I don't believe that was ever brought up to me prior to the meeting, so.
Can I put in 2 cents on that?
Absolutely.
The lawnmower issue being the list that, or the email that Bailey's referring to that I put out to the department heads is for our insurance liability purposes. So the lawnmower probably is an insured vehicle under Maya, under our liability policy. And when PC was going to assist us with the accumulation of vehicles in town, I don't know this for a fact, but I would suspect that our MIAA inventory just was transmitted to PVPC en masse without any differentiation. That's how I think the lawnmower got on there.
Sounds logical.
Well, that makes sense.
And it didn't occur to me when you mentioned it the other day. It just occurred to me now, as Bailey was saying, because the policy really isn't dependent on the inventory. The policy is separate from it, and we could have problems with the inventory that that you're mentioning specifically, but I think that's what happened with the lawnmower.
But when we're dealing down the road, let's say we approve this and we're dealing down the road, we're looking at our inventory as to what vehicles we're going to need to replace. And if that vehicle can be turned over to another department, like many times we use our police cruisers. And when the police are done with them, we look to use those in the building department or somewhere else. And this policy is very specific that it's got to replace one that
Be more fuel
more
efficient.
fuel efficient. And again, like I said, it's tough because I still think everything comes back to your inventory and what's correct on it. And then looking at the fuel efficient vehicles, I mean, to me, what it looks like is the state is trying to push everyone to purchase all electric vehicles.
That's exactly right.
And
I mean, I think I would agree with you.
I mean, we've had charging stations and we got a grant a couple of years ago for them and we can't even get those installed. And I'm speaking just myself personally, I'm not speaking for the board or anything. I find it very difficult to advance a program when the infrastructure is not even there. I mean, and we don't know when it's going to be there and we don't know the cost of it. It's just, it doesn't seem like we're quite there yet. And I have a hard time, but I'm going to open it up. I've talked enough and I appreciate everyone. Marilyn?
And you touched on it with, you know, with the infrastructure that's available. I believe we got a grant previously for 5 charging stations, but okay, my understanding was, well, is it only 3 because the grid can't handle any more than 3?
No, I don't know how the 3 was determined, but it had nothing to do with capacity.
Okay, that was what I understood, that originally it was 5 and then we could only do 3 because of, you know, what we could support from the grid.
That was just the amount that the grant was for.
Okay, okay. So then is there a concern that we are able to, as a community, you know, address the charging of all these vehicles? I mean, I remember something recently on the West Coast where there were issues with brownouts, power outages, and they couldn't even charge their electric vehicles. They were told not to charge their electric vehicles, to put a drain on the grid. That would put it, so I mean, these are things that
they're very viable concerns.
Right.
I've been attending several webinars about EV vehicle operation and acquisition and so forth. And all the charging stations, I mean, that's a big topic. Everybody acknowledges that there aren't sufficient, and where you place them, and do you require these EVs, and then to your point, don't have any ability to charge them for your community. All I keep coming back to is, as of December of 22, 290 of the 351 communities in Massachusetts have adopted this. And again, my fear is that we'll be, again, the outlier without any opportunity to access the enormous amounts of money that are available for grants to move these projects along once they're established. Nobody's doing much about them now. I don't know how many police departments in Massachusetts have electric vehicles. I know I mentioned to Tom today, the state police acquired 160 Ford something or others Interceptor minivans. So it's a work in progress, that's all. And I'm not familiar enough with the technology to answer specific questions. I think Bailey's point was that the policy isn't dependent on the inventory. You're making good points that the inventory might contain some errors, but I think that's on us as a town, because I think the inventory just was sent off prepared for a different purpose.
Did I see Catherine? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to address thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm Catherine Rattay with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I wanted to address your comment about the state is trying to get you to buy electric vehicles. And the administrator said, yes, but this policy does not require electric vehicles. This policy is about fuel efficient vehicles. And if you look at the policy, it's not a very aggressive fuel efficient vehicle requirement. It's 30 miles per gallon for a 2-wheel drive car. It's 29 miles per gallon for a 4-wheel drive car, 22 miles per gallon for a 2-wheel drive van, 20 miles per gallon for a 4-wheel drive van. It has nothing to do with electric vehicles. And as the points have been made, I apologize for the vehicle inventory. As Mary said, we took the inventory, from the insurance, and we should have done our due diligence, and we'll be happy to do that and make sure that it accurately reflects the vehicles that the town is responsible for. But again, adopting the policy tonight does not tie you to this vehicle inventory. And as Mary said, the deadline for certification for green communities is at the end of March. We were working with the community this in 2022, and we missed the deadline last fall. So we have 3 months to get the last 2 of the 5 criteria adopted, the fuel efficient vehicle policy and then the energy reduction plan. And we're working with Bailey and others on the energy reduction plan, but the fuel efficient vehicle policy is what's before you tonight. And so again, it does not requiring electric vehicles at this time. And it is part of the green community certification process that Marilyn and Connor and others worked on with the comprehensive plan 2 years ago. And it was one of the top recommendations included in the comprehensive plan that the town move forward and become a certified green community. So just to provide that greater context. And I hope you all understand that once you become a certified green community, you then receive your designation grant, which is the base is $125,000, and then there's additional funding based on population. So you'll immediately receive, let's say more than $130,000 to act on recommendations that are in the plan. And then once you've expended that initial designation award, you're now eligible to apply for competitive grants. So it opens you up to a funding stream to make your buildings and your vehicles more energy efficient. If down the line you're interested in expanding electric vehicle charging stations in the past, those have been an eligible expense. In addition to making up the difference for vehicles if you are moving forward. And again, it doesn't require you to replace the vehicles at any specific time. It's just when you're replacing a vehicle, you want to replace it with one that meets these relatively modest fuel efficient vehicle requirements as described in the policy. Thank you for the opportunity to address those concerns.
How often do you think the fuel efficiency is going to change once 351 communities are on board?
They haven't amended it. That's a very good question. It has not been amended. For those of you who've been in the town for a long time, the town looked into green community certification, I think back in 2012, in the very early days of the program. And it has, the requirements have not been updated, but that certainly is something that the Commonwealth could move to change over time.
Yeah, because, and the reason I'm asking is I noticed the stretch energy codes in the process of being updated, and I was just looking forwards at the HERS ratings, which are going to take a huge jump. And I don't know if it's even going to be possible to make houses quite as efficient as what the state's going to recommend. I mean, a 55 HERS rating now, and then they're going to be asking for it at a 42. That's more than 22% more efficient on an efficient house already. I'm thinking that the state's going to be asking for things that are unachievable. Just throwing it out there, just different thoughts, especially with the stretch energy code.
Yeah, but I think the town has already adopted the stretch energy code. So that's already a done deal. That was part of the requirements to become a certified green community.
I have a question. So I understand that the green community process kind of began before I started on the council, so like, I understand there's grant funding if we become a green community and then additional competitive funding. And my understanding is that these requirements, the fuel, specifically referring to the fuel efficiency, are set by the state, correct?
That's correct.
And so I was sort of, and I guess this is the final step in sort of the green community process. And if this passes tonight, we will become a green community? No, what's next?
There's two more. There's this one, and then there's adopting the energy reduction plan that will show a 15% reduction and also map out a plan to get to 20% reductions in your municipal energy use over 5 years.
Okay, so, because my primary concern is I actually don't have major issues with the fuel efficient vehicle policy itself. But I've recently been informed, and I don't know, have all the numbers in front of me, that the stretch codes changed on January 1st, 2023. And regarding the new high school, it would potentially could make it much more expensive to follow the new stretch codes. And so my concern is, I think it's a lovely policy, but I'm having major, if it would potentially make this new high school cost more than $125,000 more to follow the new stretch codes, I cannot in good conscience vote for continue. I don't know if we should continue the process at all. I understand that we passed the stretch codes, but I assume that can be pretty easily rectified. So I guess I kind of lost my train of thought, but oh yeah, back in September when this came up, my main concern with the fuel efficient vehicle policy was, are we going to wake up, after a legislative session or on January 1st or whenever it's enacted, or whoever's elected, whatever's deliberated, and all the fuel efficient, vehicle rules have been changed. And I sort of assured at the last meeting, and it was just discussed that, it's been a while. But, I've heard that, and it has been a while, so I'd assume there are changes probably coming down the pipes in the next several years, especially considering the stretch codes changed. And so not so much related to the fuel efficient vehicles, but I would just like to communicate to the council that I have concerns about. And while it is on our, the master plan, I do have concerns about the green communities designation in the short term, at least until the new high school is built or designed. So it's my 2 cents. I'd be curious to hear any of my fellow councilors' thoughts. They disagree, if they agree, but that's kind of where I'm sitting. I'm tentatively planning on voting no, just as a symbolic no on the green communities in general tonight. So I'm open to changing that, but I'd be curious to hear people's thoughts.
Anna, any thoughts?
I'm kind of working this out. So if we enact this and we have one more, then we'll be green.
Right.
But I thought the stretch was already approved.
It is.
So the stretch has been approved. The thought process, I guess my thought process is, it was just enacted. And we don't enact a fuel efficient vehicle policy, no matter what, we can't be a green community.
So is Matt's concern void because we already enacted the stretch?
At that
Is the
point-
high school going to be affected either way if we pass this or not?
At that point, I would think that it would be a vote on whether or not we wanted to come out of the stretch energy code
Got it.
and go back. I mean, like I said, it's been very recent. It was September, I think it was, or it was last year that we voted for the stretch energy policy.
That was November of 2021.
I was going to say, it was,
Sorry, a year and 2 months.
And then I
Seems
just
like last year, Bailey.
just one really quick question, like if you had to buy, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to state the obvious, a car that's non-fuel efficient, we are obviously able to do that if they're There.
They don't exist, right?
No, if you have to replace a car that is, or a truck or a, you know, say like an F.
So anything over 8,500 pounds is considered exempt
Okay.
heavy duty, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And so those you can go on. So in other words, your
Okay.
DPW
Right.
can replace the larger trucks and stuff like that.
Okay.
And please, if there's any information that I'm unaware of, jump in. But anything that's under the 8,500 pounds, then you have to look to the fuel efficiency policy. So let's say the deputy fire chief has a Crown Vic that's only getting 11 miles to the gallon and you're going to replace it.
Then we would.
You would need to look towards a vehicle that met the criteria of the green policy to replace it.
Right.
Okay, I have two things. One, I have a question about the policy, but the other thing is just in fairness to Bailey and Catherine, just to get a feel for where some of us are coming from this evening. Three of us attended the school building committee meeting recently. Mary was also there. And the consultant brought up the fact that the code had changed and implied that, you know, it's driving much higher costs for our new school, which is up to 155 million plus or minus right now. And so I think that's giving us all a little bit pause to pull back and say, wait a minute. I mean, I understand and I'm not against what we're trying to achieve, but in the near future, we're trying to create a new school for our kids. And I don't know if we're making these rules or adopting them and it's going to make it cost prohibitive and we won't get that. I guess that's where some of us are thinking. So I just wanted to have that background for one. And then the other piece is in the vehicle policy, you talk about heavy duty vehicles in excess of 8,500 pounds. Then you talk about medium duty, and I think medium duty is less than heavy duty in my mind, based on heavy, medium, and medium is 8,500 to 10,000 pounds. Am I not seeing it correctly? Light duty is less than 8,500, but medium is 85 to 10,000 in the classification, but heavy duty is 8,500. So I'm not sure where medium fits into all of that. That's one. That's just a question. I'm done.
Could I address your concerns about the cost of the building?
Please.
Counselor, the previous counselor said, you know, the cost was estimated to be an additional $125,000. So your designation grant, you know, is going to be at least $125,000.
I said that the cost is likely to be more than $125,000.
Okay.
My understanding is I wasn't there, but it's been sort of relayed to me that it was implied by the builders that it could be in the millions.
Significant amount.
Okay, all right.
And so
yeah.
So I just have concerns that, you know, $125,000 and then a little extra change, plus then the chance at competitive grants, which is might as well be you can roll dice, you know. I'm having a tough time with that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the process.
I just want
it happen, but I just think we're in a unique situation for the town, and I'm having a tough time with it.
So, and I just wanted to affirm what you both suggested, is that these are options that the town can take. These are regulations that you can adopt and then that you can withdraw from, as you noted. So if you choose to, you know, change your adoption of the stretch code, of course, that's your choice. But what I think would be important is for us, you know, the Department of Energy Resources staff and my team to be able to talk to the builders and, you know, to get an estimate of the upfront cost may be X, the upfront additional cost, but the long-term operating cost of your building is, you know, is guaranteed to offset the cost, any additional upfront cost, and it's going to be so much less expensive over time. So if we could get you that information, I think that would make you feel a lot more comfortable about the information that you're getting from the builder about the possible increases of cost, you know, when the new stretch code goes into effect. And also, just to be clear, you know, the Green Communities Program has been in effect since 2011. The stretch code, Massachusetts Building Code, is tied to the International Energy Conservation Code. So every 3 years, the Commonwealth upgrades the energy efficiency code, but they haven't for 10 years, as you've noted. 2022, 2023 is when the Commonwealth has first upgraded the stretch code to the energy efficiency code. So you're right, it's happening now, but it didn't happen for 10 years. And you all, I mean, obviously we all elect our representatives, so we get to have a say in what the government does. But if we could, I would really like to get you, you know, some more longer term cost benefit analysis of what the stretch code will impact on your high school, because I think you'll find that it's going to save the town a lot of money in the long term.
I'm open to that.
Yep.
When you have, well, go ahead now.
Well, my response to that is that MSBA has a certain threshold of what they consider an efficient building design in order to be eligible for certain types of reimbursement. So I feel like it was unfortunate that the architects made that statement last week.
Okay.
Because what do we follow their insinuation and walk back the stretch energy code and thereby jeopardize a percentage of reimbursement, because now we might be able to build it by less than totally efficient standards in the eyes of MSBA? I think that's a tightrope that,
I don't want to walk.
as Catherine has pointed out, it may be more costly up front. And we don't know those numbers yet because they're just now in the estimation stages. However, the long-term benefits of a optimum energy efficient building gives us a greater return on the investment.
Ralph, may I?
Please.
Well, I reached out to Mark Rabinski, Catherine and Bailey, after I was informed that that conversation took place with one of the architects, and I think it was Mr. Page. And my understanding is that the estimation of increased costs was very non-specific. And when I reached out to Mark, I said in my email, what's the impact, or can you tell me the impact of the stretch code on building costs? And of course, he said, well, since you're not going to be in construction for 2 more years, arguably, it's almost impossible to answer that question. That's one thing. And Tom and I were discussing this today, and he made a very good point that I think the council should have in its mindset if you are considering rescission of the stretch code. If it's been in effect in town since when, Bailey? November of 21?
Yeah.
Think of all the building that's gone on in this town since the impact of that law, and query whether we're being fair to builders who have expended money, excess money, based on the stretch code requirements in that time period. So now, you know, if the town feels that it's going to increase our costs, well, okay, we'll consider rescinding the code. Well, how does that affect fairly every other person who's built in something in accordance with the stretch code over that time period? And query what exposure are we potentially creating, if any? But I mean, at its core, it's the fairness issue. And I think that's important to think about.
So I'm going to reply real quick to that. When we did the stretch energy code, I reached out to the builders and they were already building to that because it was so close to the building code.
Mhm.
That's not going to be the way going forwards. I took 2.5 hours this afternoon and went through the paperwork and all that you gave me. And the stretch code is, I mean, it's leaping way above what the building code's going to be, to the point where I reached out to 2 builders this afternoon and they said they didn't know if they're going to be able to build a house that meets that HERS rating. They're concerned. And again, I built a house. I went through, I insulated this thing to the tilt and all. And when they came in and checked it, they said, your house is too tight. You actually have to start pumping in air through your bathroom fans to bringing fresh air into it. And it's like,
Yeah.
I did all of this work, all this extra money, only to find that, hey, guess what? Yeah, it's too good now. Now you gotta go back and, I mean, it's frustrating, and it's frustrating seeing the regulations change. Because I will say, when we voted that in, that was part of my questions. We looked at additions. And if it was gonna affect a house that had an addition put on, and at that time we were told absolutely not, no, it doesn't. Well, now it's going to.
Mhm.
And these are changes that the state level's making. And we're stuck, we're bound by them. And it's tough. And I fear, I'm looking at these policies and I'm being told, well, they haven't been updated in quite a while. Well, that scares me even more, because you know what that means?
Fine.
That means it's time, and all of a sudden that 30 mile per gallon vehicle is going to jump to a 42. And I mean, I'm looking at the police vehicles. I went onto the state's website for procurement. Like I told you, there's typically only 3 vehicles right now that would meet this criteria for a police cruiser. One's a pickup truck, which the council has expressly said we didn't think that the police department needed. So we're cutting down to telling our police department in the future, choose between this one, and that's it. And I don't think it's.
Well, there is that language that, these vehicles
Well-
must be purchased when they're commercially available and practicable. So
Well, and
I don't think
you're an attorney. What does that mean?
it means if you can't afford it and you can't find it, you don't have to buy it. At least that's how I interpret those words.
Charge it.
That's fine. That's what I.
It's a huge loophole saying, hey, we want you to join, but you really don't have to follow it. I'm one of these, if I'm gonna go forwards and we're gonna do this, you know very well, I am gonna get the list, and I am gonna go through vehicle by vehicle and check it and inspect it and make sure it's getting the miles per gallon. But that's just myself. I'm gonna go back to the board because I've talked enough again. Bailey's got a question.
So I just want to add to a couple points that were made by Catherine and some by Mary. In general, the Green Communities designation will open the town up to several things. One, the energy reduction plan that we're going to bring to the council, hopefully to the next meeting, will allow the town to review the energy audit that was done last year and hopefully meet those goals that we are going to bake into that reduction plan. And then, we'd also be allowed the opportunity to apply for additional grant funds through the program, and we would automatically receive some, as Catherine stated. So there's additional benefits outside of just the energy efficiency of our buildings. And we're focusing on one building, one potential building that may or may not happen in terms of a brand new high school. And I just want to bring it back a little bit and look bigger picture at all of our buildings and all of our vehicles in town. As a town, we have an opportunity to make that overhead cost less every year, or every time we go to replace a vehicle, or every time we go to make our buildings more energy efficient.
Connor.
Thank you, Ralph. Kind of after listening to all these different topics so far, I mean, overall, I'm still in favor of the fuel efficient vehicle policy and moving forward with the Green Communities designation. And I don't think it would be wise for us to back out of any of the steps or votes that we've taken thus far. In terms of like the whole electric versus gas vehicle type thing, I mean, there's also the hybrid vehicles, and so many manufacturers these days are releasing ones that you don't even have to plug in. I mean, just we've had the Prius for a long time, but they're creating other versions of pretty much every other make and model on the market, and they're really not that much more expensive. And if you look at most car websites, they're maybe $3,000 more than the gasoline equivalent. And I think it's also not only is a good idea to reduce the energy consumption, but all of these things will eventually save the town money, not upfront, but over the long term. And I think as a town, or at least as a council, we don't often think far enough out into the future of how much money we're really going to cost ourselves or not save ourselves if we don't look 5, 10, 15 years down the line and what impacts these would positively have. And I think, well, I'm not always a fan of top-down state regulation on local government. I think eventually the state would reconcile their differences, whether it's the building codes potentially becoming too restrictive, or if they do decide a year or two from now to update these fuel efficient mile per gallon numbers to something double what they are today, they'll eventually have to reconcile the difference if they become way too prohibitive that no other community that's already adopted these same policies, if they couldn't make it work either. So eventually they'll find the balance between it. Maybe tough for a year, but I don't think it's going to stop anything from happening.
Mike, you've been quiet. I haven't heard from you. Would you like to chime in a little bit? I mean, you work for the police department. I don't know if Hamden has any other vehicles. They're fuel efficient that the state allows. Curious what your thoughts are.
Well, listening to everyone's comments around the room, it seems like there's unanswered questions. And I believe that Bailey or Catherine might be able to answer the questions that we have. And I think I heard that, you know, we have probably till March to make a decision. So my thoughts would be to have each of us present a question to Catherine and Bailey and have those questions answered. And maybe we'd feel more comfortable about the direction we take. My question as a member, just coming out of emergency vehicle operations training, that we're all trained. The training, first of all, is about being comfortable with what your vehicle can do and what the operator can do. You find your limitations, and we're being trained in specific vehicles right now. And to switch those vehicles to something else would undo all the training that everyone through the entire Commonwealth is experiencing on a week-to-week basis. So that would be one of my questions for Catherine and Bailey. We're talking about cruisers, and we're talking about emergency response vehicles, being, you know, fire vehicles or our ambulances. And we need to be, the people that are operating those vehicles need to be trained in those vehicles for their own safety, but not only for their own safety, but for the general public safety as well. Because if one of those vehicles goes off the road, it doesn't mean it's just going to hurt the operator. We're inflicting liability and harm to the residents of the community as well. So again, my question would pertain to any emergency vehicle that the town's operating right now, and the training, because the training is ongoing, as I said. And I've heard each and every one of you also have questions. So again, I would phrase those questions to Bailey and Catherine and see if we can get them answered so that we'd be comfortable when we bring this to a vote.
Thanks, Mike. Connor?
I think in terms of the emergency vehicles, I mean, we're already kind of safe. The ambulances that we have are already exempt. Fire trucks would be exempt because they're so gigantic. And the police cruisers, as the policy says, they're not currently required to be following all of these guidelines, although I think you could find some that would more than go above and beyond that. In fact, they'd probably outperform them, especially in time to go from 0 to 60. But I don't think anything would be prohibitive in terms of any of our emergency services that we have today.
But to your point, as a council, we need to look out 10, 15 years. And if this policy goes in, I'm pretty confident that our state is pushing us towards all electric vehicles. And looking out 10 to 15 years, that's what I see. And I mean, that's part of my thought process. And I'm looking at it going, who's going to repair these vehicles? It's not gonna be our normal mechanic down the road, because being all electric, you gotta have an electrician's license and to do half of them, which means they're gonna be going back to the dealer. I mean, I see the costs of batteries and stuff in these vehicles. A Chevy Volt, $28,000 to replace the battery. You can buy the vehicle for $35,000. And I'm also, I mean, I'm looking, and again, this is outside of this vehicle policy, and I mean, I'm looking at the whole picture. And I'm wondering where all these batteries and all go afterwards. I mean, I know we're pushing all electric houses, all electric this and that, and then I worry about the grid going down. I mean, I see California having brownouts all the time. Please don't charge your vehicle because there's not enough electricity between 1 and 4. Well, if that's happening now, what do you think is going to happen in 5 years when they want no fossil fuel vehicles? They want them all electric. Again, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about some of the wording in this, like commercially applicable and practical. That really just leaves the door open. At this point, we could say, yeah, we'll go with it. And yeah, it wasn't practical. We're not going to buy it. That's my 2 cents. Michael made a good suggestion that we ask questions. Do we want to throw some out right now? I know, Kathy, you had mentioned about the cost for the new school. Do you want to have them take a quick look into it to see what the feasibility is?
Well, they've already actually made that offer, I thought.
Well, they had, but Mike
Right,
had suggested we ask specific questions.
No.
So does anyone have any specific questions they'd like them to look into?
Yeah, I would like to know what the potential cost of it. I suppose, I don't know if you guys should reach out to the builders, the architects, I don't know who, but I would like to know what the cost is of a high school, the high school, I don't know, following the new stretch codes that are now in effect, and I understand we would be beholden to versus the cost without in present, because I understand there's the long-term, view of we're gonna save money and it's gonna be great, but you're not gonna pass so I feel I was elected by those that support the high school. And it's not gonna pass if it's I've heard, it could be up to, if it's a lot, if it's millions. So an extra price. So I would just like those numbers. If it's not a lot, I'm down to play ball, but so I guess that's my question. It's kind of word salad, but I'd like to know the new stretch code cost versus the pre-January 1st, 2023 stretch code cost of the building. And then obviously, I think Catherine, you mentioned the long-term savings, and I'd like those numbers too. I think those would be valuable, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I would to tag on to Matt, in your quest to obtain that information, I think rather than going directly to the architectural firms, that you pose those questions to the superintendent of schools and the chair of the school building committee, because that body is the agent to get this process done.
Well, I would think through Pioneer Valley Planning that, I mean, they could look at 187,000 square foot building and compare the two codes.
Right,
And
you
come
might
up
be
with
able to
some
do it
general-
generically.
An average,
generic.
Right.
Marilyn, any questions?
I was, as I say, it was the discussion at the meeting that generated some of this thinking, that I would be happy with that information if we could have it. So that's it.
Anna?
Connor has.
Catherine, what would you, I guess my 2 questions would probably be, what would you say an average community, maybe similar to East Long Meadow, would receive in grants if we were a green community? Because I know you said that there was that kind of like base, like 125,000 or so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so it depends on the aggressiveness of the community and the, as Counselor Matt was saying about, your effectiveness with securing funding, but so I think the initial designation is probably going to be like 140,000. I'm just basing it on what you said with other communities. I always point to the town of Palmer because they got certified in 2011 and their staff and the town council just was supportive and they moved forward. And I know I'm pretty confident that they've received over $2 million to implement all the recommendations in their energy reduction plan and update it over time. So I always point to them because they're, just kind of an unusual smaller community that just decided we're going to really take advantage of this funding and go to town essentially. So you could get, millions of dollars. You get your designation, then you get a competitive grant. The competitive grants are not that competitive because the Commonwealth wants you to reduce your energy use and there's lots of funding available to do it. So the funding is, allocated by the requirement that it be spent for these purposes. So I'm sorry, I'm going on, but that's the long answer to your question. You can get a lot of money depending on your success and the commitment of the staff and the board.
And then my second question to that, which I think you started to answer, and that was based on that money that you would receive, whether it's from the competitive grant or not, is that tied to specific projects that would have come out of that second plan that you were talking about there? That was that last step.
Exactly. That energy reduction plan will map out all the projects that you need that will get you to 20% reductions in overall municipal energy use, including buildings as well as vehicles. And that's what you can apply for funding for. And just as the Commonwealth, finally, or not finally, but ultimately made the decision to upgrade the stretch code, they are now creating Green Communities 2.0 or some kind of an advanced program for the municipalities that have, successfully reduced their energy use by 20%. And so there's going to be a whole new pot of funding for the communities that have made significant progress in reducing municipal energy use.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Mike?
I just wanted to say, the list of questions I have were comprised of basically what everyone else has brought up to have Catherine and Bailey answer. But to expand on that, I would ask what vehicles is the town of East Long Meadow currently operating that would be exempt from this policy? And then when I cast a vote, my vote isn't going to be just based on emergency vehicles. It's the totality of the entire situation that we discussed tonight. So I'll be very happy to hear all the questions that were put on the table. Once they're answered, I think that all of us will feel much more comfortable at the direction we take moving forward.
Connor?
One final thing.
Black you.
I think it's probably similar to what I've mentioned in the past few minutes, but I think knowing that there's projects that we could potentially undertake in the coming years, that we would also get assistance funding from the state to reduce our energy usage. I just look back to our last meeting, we spent almost $50,000 out of free cash for bills of a prior year for utility disputes because the high school used way more than anybody expected to. And yet I know that would be potentially resolved with what high school project. But there's got to be other opportunities in town that we're having that same problem with. And I don't see those utility bills going down anytime soon. So I feel like anything we can do here to reduce our usage and reduce our cost is a worthwhile investment. And everyone's national grid bill went up an awful lot of money. That's not going to get any cheaper for the town.
My concern is at what cost? I mean, like when someone's building a house, there's gives and takes. Everyone would like 12 inches of spray foam insulation so that their electric bill's $100, but they can't afford the extra $20,000 to put in that spray foam insulation. So they're willing to give up the extra few $100s a year over the life of it in order to get it. And My concern again, and I don't know what the cost difference is, and I think this would be a great chance to look at it, is would something like this break the fact that it may end up being too much geothermal, the heating system. Geothermal would be awesome for the new high school. But we're looking at it going, well, what's the cost of it? Well, the cost is up here. Yeah, over the lifespan, it's wonderful and it would probably really save us. But we can't afford this. So, and I think that's what we're really looking at as a whole, as a council, and trying to come up with policies and efficiencies and to make everything work. Like I said, it's not one thing in particular. It's trying to look at the broad range of everything. Bailey, what I will do is I will photocopy my inventory list and I will drop it off in your office tomorrow. I've got the GVWs, I've got circled all the vehicles that were non-exempt, that I think there's issues with, so that those are ones that we can concentrate on and take a look at. My last question to Catherine would be to do with emergency response vehicles. So right now, there's only, like I said, what I could see on the state's website, 3 available. Do we have an idea of what other communities have been replacing their vehicles with? If they've been going with this, or have they been saying that they're not commercially available right now? So down the road, we're going to do it. I know it doesn't come into effect until I think it's July 2023 that they have to. I've also seen grant money used to replace vehicles with more fuel efficient. So I'm just curious what other towns are doing.
Yes, I can research that as well. Thank you.
So I'm assuming the wishes of the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be to continue this until we get the answers so that we can further the discussion before we take a vote.
Sure.
Yep.
That sound? Connor wants to vote. I'm pretty sure you're outvoted here though, Connor, so. So I would like to continue this at another meeting once we get some answers and once we go forwards and again, this is not going to be pushed off. I mean, it'll be at the next meeting if it's at all possible to get the answers that we need by then. Because Mary, we said what, March is the deadline?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the energy plan's been drafted, but not reviewed yet.
So does that energy plan have to come in front of the council for a vote?
Yes.
So I know there was 5 criteria. The stretch code has to come in front of us, the vehicle policy and the reduction, but the other 2 don't. And I don't know what those were.
The other 2 were essentially a review of our permitting processes and a specific, one of them was specifically geared towards solar.
Yes, by right.
Yeah, so those 2 criteria were met through a letter from our town attorney. Yeah, so our permitting process is sufficient to meet those criteria, basically.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions, comments? Tom, any comments? Okay. I appreciate it. Mary, anything?
No, I have, well, one thing I'll say is this is a list of the Massachusetts grants that have been given to the member communities so far. I'm happy to share it with anybody who would like to see it. $20 million a year. Funded by the, what is it, Catherine, the Greater Regional
Greenhouse Gas Initiative, Reggie, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a special fund.
Up to 10 million, isn't it?
20 million a year. Each town can apply up to 200,000 per year is my understanding from Mark. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the only reason I say that is the website said it's up to $10 million total grants distributed.
Yeah, well.
So they may have increased it to 20 million because they have extra money.
But to Matt's point about the competitive nature of the grants, I mean, there's like 38 pages of the communities that are members and the amounts that they've received. So as Catherine said, I don't know how stiff the competition is, which is a good thing.
So Catherine, can I ask you a question? We're going through for our high school, obviously. I don't understand why, if we become a green community, why we can't use some of that funding towards building a new high school for green efficiencies. I'm being told through the state that the MSBA doesn't like to commingle funds.
Yeah.
Don't they want a most efficient school that you can get? And if there's other ways, other monies available, I would think they would be happy to do it.
Yes, and I've heard that exact same point made by every single municipality that is, you know, tried to do this with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And unfortunately, there hasn't been a different answer.
It's
So, yeah.
frustrating. It's frustrating because
It
there are
is.
certain things that I would love to do with a new high school that another grant from the green communities would really help on, but anyways,
Okay.
with that being said,
Yeah.
would anyone like to make a motion for adjournment?
Do we want to set out, do we want to look at a date for the school committee? You're going to put that on the next meeting? That'll be on the next meeting.
Right, so I'm gonna look that up as something to do.
All
I've
right.
got a note on that.
Okay.
Are we still,
That's per charter.
yeah, that's per charter. When I was at the school building committee meeting, we had talked about posting a meeting for January 19th, the school building committee's meeting. And they would like as many counselors present as possible. And so I had asked Jeannie if she would post a meeting for it. I think that's still a go. For January 19th, there was a guest speaker coming in, wasn't it?
From Quincy.
Mr. Mason.
Okay. So if we can make it, I believe it's 5 PM, January 19th.
Yes, unless the speaker can come at 4. That
Okay.
still is up in the air.
So
So how do you post? I guess we have to wait.
I think Jeannie, if
I'll come
you
in
check with Gordon's office, he'll have a better.
And once I do post, I'll send you all a copy of the
I
post.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
that's more of a knowledge aspect for everyone, January 19th. Either 4 or 5. Yeah,
Or 6.
we'll see. Jeannie.
I hate to go backwards in time, but I'm wondering if you should maybe suggest a motion to table
Right.
fuel to a future date, just so it's on the record that it was
Okay.
discussed and you tabled it into the next meeting and probably name the February meeting. Be specific. This is a suggestion.
So would someone like a motion to make a motion to table the fuel efficient vehicle policy?
Sure. I motion to table the fuel efficiency vehicle policy to our next meeting on February 14th.
Is it the 14th?
And I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any names? The 6-1? 6-1, okay. Is there anything else? I'm sure there is, but we'll send you an email. Motion to adjourn, someone?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
That's yours.
How is it?
Oh, I'm.
Bailey, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it.